Back again YouTube, and welcome back to another video within this series. And if you've seen the last video where I was demonstrating the data flow within our application, we're going to be building out some of those classes and implementing them within our MVC application. So we're going to go straight into it, jump straight into it, because we've got quite a bit to go through as well. So I want to take you back to my application directory. And you can see that we've already got two directories in here, which is what we created in one of our last videos on our route testing. We're going to leave those for now because we're going to be using them later on. But I want to actually create a new directory called entity. So I'm going to say entity. And if I take you back to or explain the diagram from this from the last video, the entity was responsible for getting that incoming data, sanitizing it, and returning a clean data. So our model really is sort of like mapping each entity to a database table. So we're going to have entities for each database table within our application, and their sole responsibility is to actually sanitize those incoming data for that particular entity and brings it back to the model. That is its only job, right? So we're going to be creating a base class which all of our entities are going to be extending from. So that's really where we want to be working in first. So I'm going to be opening up my Magma directory into the base directory, and I'm going to create a new class, and we're going to actually code this out. So it's going to be base entity.php. And again, like all of our classes, the structure is going to be the same, declaring strict type, namespace, etc., etc. So be PHP declare strict type equal 1 namespace magma back in our base directory. Be class base entity, right? And I'm going to have a constructor method in here which is going to do the bulk of the work. So we're going to declare it, and then we're going to explain as we're going along. So be public function construct, and this is going to take in one argument, which is going to be an array, like so. I'm going to call it dirty data, because we're just going to assume that everything coming into our application is not clean. So we're going to call it dirty data, and we're going to sanitize it and get a clean array back. So dirty data, I'm going to say if empty dirty data, I want to throw an exception, because if you submit a form and it's empty, then there's nothing to work with. So I don't want to send an empty array to my repository. I'm going to say to the user, nothing was submitted, please fix that. So I'm going to throw a new base invalid argument exception. I'm going to put a generic text right here for now for the time being. I'm going to say no data was submitted, right? We're going to come back later on and put some more appropriate message in, so it makes a little bit more sense. And the next bit I want to do is check if it's an array, and then iterate over that dirty data, because that's an array coming in, checking that it is an array, and then iterating over it. So I'm going to say if is array dirty data, I'm going to say for each dirty data as key value, right? So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to assign each key to the value. So I'm going to do it like this. So this key, which is the key within this actual for each loop, yeah, equal the value. And this is similar to like getters and setters in your PHP function, except we're not actually using those PHP magic methods, we're actually doing it like this because this is my preferred way of doing it. And that's going to take in the array, assign the key to the value. So we could echo the key to get the value effectively. And I'm going to demonstrate that to you when we come to writing the entity or a controller class. I'm going to demonstrate to you exactly how that works. But there's something else that we need to do, because you can see at the minute we're taking that dirty data, we're not actually doing anything, we're not actually cleaning it or anything like that. So we need to clean it and assign the key to clean values. So I'm going to take this out. I'm going to say this clean data, then pass that variable back into this method, dirty data, right? So now we've created a method that we have not yet created, which is what we're going to do now. So I'm going to say, make it private function clean data, which takes in that array of dirty data, which is going to return a clean array, right? And it's going to be pretty simple because we're going to be using an external class, a class within our framework to do all of our sanitization. So we're going to say clean data equal sanitizer clean, and pass that dirty data argument in. Then if that was clean, then return that clean data, right? Which is what we're getting back in our method, within our for each loop. So obviously this class, we've not created this class yet. So let's go ahead and create that class and implement all of our sanitization. So scroll down into my utility, because that's where I'm going to be putting classes like this in our utility directory. So I'm going to create a new file, call it sanitizer.php. Then again, same process, PHP declare strict types equal 1 namespace magma, and we're in our utility directory. Utility, say class sanitizer, and that's it. It's not extending nor implementing no interface. This contains one static method called clean, which is what we've referenced right here. So I'm going to say public static function clean, and that's also going to return a clean array, right? And it takes in that one argument, which is that dirty data, and that's exactly how we're going to reference it until it becomes clean, right? So we've got that method passing in that argument and returning a clean array. So I'm going to create a reset variable, which is going to be an array. So I'm going to say input equal an empty array, right? I'm going to say if count dirty array is greater than 0, meaning that we've got at least one element within that array. Let's proceed. So for each dirty data as key value, right? So I'm going to check that we've got a valid key. If we've not got a valid key, we're going to throw an exception, because we cannot assign a value to an empty key. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to say if isIt key. If we haven't got a key, going to throw new base invalid exception and put something generic as invalid key, something like that. Then also the value right here within our for each loop could be of different data type. It could be a boolean, could be a string, or it could even be an array. So we're going to say if isn't array, if it's not an array, value we want to actually trim all white spaces and unquote any quoted string. Just say value equal trim strip slashes value, just like that, right? And now we're going to execute that switch block, and we're going to be switching through the value and using the case to actually sanitize via the data type, which is going to be something like switch value, and our first case is going to be the integer. I'm going to say case is int value. So if this is an integer, let's sanitize this int break. So I'm going to grab my variable that I created and say input, assign it to the key, right, which is what we've declared in our for each loop, and say equal isIt value. So we're saying if the value is set, then sanitize it. So we'll say question sign filter var, and we're going to pass in that value and declare a PHP constant called filter sanitize number int, right? These are all PHP method or PHP constants. I'm going to say if we've got a value, sanitize it, else, denoting that colon, else, whoops, empty string, just like that. I'm going to move on to the next one, which is going to be a string. So I'm going to say case is string value, then let's sanitize these strings. So it's going to be input key equal isIt value. So if we've got a value again, let's say question sign filter var again, the value, but this time it's going to be filter sanitize, and the top one string, else empty string, just like that. Now we can also check for boolean and stuff like that, but I'm going to skip that for now. I'm going to jump to checking if the value is an array, because then we need to do something different. So I'm going to say case is array value, and yep, break. So saying if count value is greater than 0, meaning if the value of our array contains more than one element, let's do another for each loop. So we're going to say for each value as array key to array val, right? Or value. Let's just not abbreviate. So we're saying if is int the array value, then we're going to be doing the same thing that we did up in the code block. So I'm going to say input array key equal isIt array value. If array value is set, let's do a filter var, and it's going to be that array value. I'm going to use the filter, and it's going to be sanitize number int, right? Else, it's an empty string. Then we're going to say else input array key equal isIt if array value is set, then we're going to filter var value, and we filter sanitize string, else so empty array, right? Then we're going to come out of our for each loop and say if is it input, and input is not empty, then return that input like that. So returning the array of clean sanitize array, just like that. So that's the clean method in our sanitizer class, and it's just going to return a clean sanitize array, which is what we're passing to our base entity. So we need to bring that class in. So we use magma utility, and it's going to be sanitizer, which is what we're using down here, right? So now we're going to go and create our first entity class. I'll just pretend it's a user class, right? So I'm going to say, where have you gone? Say user entity .php. Again, same process. PHP declare strict types namespace, and it's going to be app because we're now in our application directory. It's going to be app, and it's going to be entity. So say class user entity. We're going to extend from that base entity, and let's bring that in. We use magma base entity, and all we're going to do in this class is declare a constructor, and that's it. We're going to be declaring a constructor which has got an argument which we're then going to pass to the parent constructor, which is within our base entity class. I'm going to say public function construct, and it's going to be an array of dirty data coming in, and that's going to be parent construct, and pass an argument right there. So that's effectively the bare bone of our entities within our application. Its sole responsibility is to take that data coming in from our model and sanitizing it, bringing back clean data for our model so we can then submit that to our database. That is it. And you could probably say, why implement a lot of different class just to do something so simple? It's for that future extendability. So we can come back to this class later on, and we could implement some different stuff or other related stuff without actually modifying the framework. We've already sort of like laid the foundation for any future extension that we want to add to this project. So that's how we're going to be implementing it. There's going to be a different class which maps to each table within our database, which is pretty much doing the same thing, right? And that's the whole idea behind entity. So in the next video, we're going to be creating a model within our controller, and then we're going to show you how they are interacting with each other. So stay tuned for the next video because that's coming up pretty shortly.